What up, gamers? I'm Jason, and here I've got friends of mine. We've got Friday Night Games, and we've got Bridge City Boardgamers. I'm going to let them do their introduction in just a moment. Today, we're going to be talking to you about Kickstarter, the value of exclusives, what can become bloated Kickstarters, and we have the perfect example game for this. As you can see, we've got it in the background there. So we have Marvel United, which we will be discussing. Now, Julie would have been joining us. She does make a lot of the decisions with regards to what Kickstarters come into the house, but I'm the one that handles all the value and things like that. So she's like, you know what? You take it solo because this is more your thing. So I'm going to toss it over. I forgot the camera the other way. Also, I don't know what I'm doing. John, take it away.
That's all right. Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is John. I am one half of Friday Night Games. We are a board game preview podcast that you can find on all the streaming platforms. My counterpart, Matthew, and I have been friends pretty much since kindergarten. So we've known each other a long time, and we decided to get in this board game venture just to play awesome games and meet exciting people. So we're excited to be here. Thanks for having us. Or I'm excited, I should say.
Well, thank you for joining. It wouldn't be the same.
Hey, and I'm Ryan, and I'm 1/3 of the weekly podcast Card Board Conjecture, based out of here in Saskatoon. And my other co-hosts, Norm and Ian, we are all three teachers here in Saskatchewan. Norm and I actually teach in the same school, and that's how we kind of met. And I introduced him to the board gaming hobby. And then Ian, our other counterpart, he teaches in another school, but he's the one who introduced me to the board gaming hobby. So we kind of have the triage, the trickle down effect. And we also publish out a weekly episode called What You've Been Playing Wednesdays, which both Jason and Julie of Dice and Dragons are part of, and Matt and John from Friday Night Games are part of, and a whole bunch of other great Canadian content creators have joined in on the cast. And hey, that's one's been a lot of fun every week to hear what everybody's been playing in. And you can catch us on all the podcast things. We're hosted through Podbean, but you can catch us on Apple, Google, everything that you can catch a podcast on lately. So,
All right, so
yeah, that's us. And thank you.
So if you're looking for anyone, you can find them down below in the video description. We have links to all of their content there. And for those of you that maybe want to skip ahead, because we are going to be talking a little bit about the Kickstarter platform itself. So this is just for people that maybe don't know it. There are plenty of people that do watch videos that still haven't jumped into Kickstarter. It surprises me, but I see it happen every day. And if you want to just jump into the Marvel United section, well, everything's timestamped down there. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about Kickstarter as a platform. Now, I've been into board gaming for a while. I discovered Kickstarter myself probably about 3 years ago. And what really attracted me to Kickstarter is the value and the exclusives. So I really like the fact that I'd be able to get a game, get some extra expansions, get some games that may not actually fit in the retail mold, and those exclusives. And the company that we're going to talk about, I think maybe the company that's mastered the exclusive model is CMON, where you get a nice big box of extra stuff, some of the most fun content for their Zombicide games, especially ones like Green Horde and Invader. And you can only get that by backing the game on Kickstarter and therefore giving the money directly to the company, which does cut out the friendly local game store from the whole thing. Some of them partake, but a lot of them don't participate in the Kickstarter platform. So, John, Ryan, what do you guys think of the platform?
I'm like mixed feelings about Kickstarter. So I was like all in when I started back in games, probably about 2-3 years ago, like you said. But over the past couple months, I think what's really been getting to me is the fact that some companies are just releasing games on Kickstarter, and for whatever reason, that annoys me to no end. But I take a look at Bloodstone by Skybound Games, for instance. I understand the why behind their decision to have that. As far as it's a big box, so it's a lot of retail space for a store. But just something irks me about those. You can only get this game on Kickstarter. But other than that, I really like the exclusives from the games. I backed the last game I backed was Everdell, the last two expansions, and then got like the big old box of storage to fit all my other expansions in. I'm super jazzed to get all that stuff. And yeah, and then we talked last week about fear of missing out, and man, Kickstarter is good for that too. Just back that game so I don't miss it. So, and I think the one big game that got me with the FOMO was Wonderland's War by Skybound's game. So I initially backed it for $1 so I can get it on that pledge manager, because I found it pretty expensive, especially being in Canada. The shipping and stuff can get pretty astronomical. And then I had it in the pledge manager for a while, didn't touch it, didn't back it, and then decided to go all in on the deluxe. And then about a couple months after that, I went all in and got like the chips and all that good stuff. So that's where I'm at with Kickstarter. It's a love-hate relationship for me right now, and I'm on a pause from backing everything. But I mean, it's good. It's good for the small companies too who want to get their game out there.
I think you nailed it on the head. It's great for those indie creators, the ones that are trying to just start out. And then for those games like Bloodstone that just don't move retail. A great example of that is Conan from Monolith, which was being sold in partnership with Asmodee, but then it went back to Monolith exclusively because it just wasn't doing what they wanted to at retail with its cost, as well as I also think they put too many of the good stuff in the exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Yeah. So my journey with Kickstarter here, it all started way back in, what does it say here? 2014 is when I backed my very first project. And it was one of those projects where that's where Kickstarter really got me, is like, I want to help support these little guys. They're coming out. That's what the Kickstarter platform was created to do, is to help get these get the funds into those projects, get them off the ground. So like my very first game I backed was by A Games. I don't even know if they're a publisher still anymore. And their game was called Ave Roma. It was going to be a Kickstarter only type of game. And I was just like, it was like worker placement. I don't actually own the game anymore. I played it out and just never ever got back to the table. But it was like, that was that very first one. There was only 1,000 backers, which at that time I was like, that's astronomical that 1,000 people wanted to help make this project actually happen. And then my addiction kind of went like exponential after that. Like I take a look at my profile here. I don't even know if we want to share stats or anything like that, but I'm 123 projects backed at as of this moment. The last one that I did was hasn't funded yet, Florence by Brain Carac Games, because I really enjoyed the other ones. They had Venice and they had Ragusa as well. But I don't know. I go up. I'm like bipolar on this topic and everything. I have my ups and I have my downs. And then when somebody like CMON or Awakened Realms comes out with their big massive project, and you're like, "Ooh, that just looks so juicy." What are all the things? Oh my gosh, there's so many. Why do they keep adding? Oh, they keep adding more things, and there's more things. And then all of a sudden, like, it's $300 later, and I'm like, but I can't just have just that one thing. I need to have all. My game feels incomplete if I don't have all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, that's the thing. That's where they hook you. And they, like, I listened to the fantastic episode by Friday Night Games. The FOMO really kicks in when you feel like I don't have a complete game, and they're really good at marketing that piece on these platforms.
Oh, it's unbelievable how well they do marketing. And one thing I want to give CMON credit for, because I think they have the perfect example of bloated Kickstarters back like even years ago with, for example, the original Zombicide, and you look at like Black Plague and Green Horde and just all the optional buys, like so much stuff that if you had all of it, I think most people have never played as all of the characters. And what I'm finding now with like second edition, they've really slimmed it down with like one box, a little bit of exclusives, maybe like one or two optional buys, not that many characters, and then you have like two other boxes. And I can say just playing Zombicide second edition now, Julie and I have already gone into one of the small boxes and we're in the campaign box. So I'd say I'm already going through a fair chunk of this content, whereas I look at like Green Horde and I'm like, oh man, like I haven't even scratched the surface of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like all their projects haven't always been like that. Like you look way back when Blood Rage was out and everything. They didn't have a ton of like extra additional stuff. It was like a couple little small box expansions. Like there was like the Mystics, and then there was the Gods expansion, and then they had a couple like a few exclusive characters, and then like that was like it. So they haven't always been always in like with the millions of expansions and the millions of exclusives and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting when you look it back all the way back to there.
So I think we've covered enough of what we want to talk about. Just the Kickstarter platform, brief summary. So it's a great way for companies to market directly to gamers. It's got the marketing hype machine, and then we get the exclusives. And I think that's the perfect segue for us to talk about what is a good Kickstarter exclusive. So I let it off first. I'm going to hand it off this time. Who wants to take over?
You can go, Ryan.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm trying to look through all my lists here. Like I've got all my pledges up here right now. I'm trying to think. I'm going to try to come up with a good example, like a good example of good exclusives. And I'm just going to kind of just fiddle around here and everything like that. So like, I backed a game called Valley of the Kings. It was put out by AEG. It was a reprinted game, and their exclusive, like they came out with the retail. I like this idea that they have the retail edition, and there's this edition that only if you help us back this, you get this one on Kickstarter. So a premium edition had like larger size cards. They gave you the card sleeves. They gave you the nice insert inside the box, everything like that. I love those types of exclusives. The things like I get a little bit better of experience. Oh, I guess in my opinion, I get a better experience component wise with my game as opposed to say somebody buying it at retail. I really love those types of exclusivities, like screen printed meeples, or couple of I get the option of getting metal coins, or I get miniatures instead of standees. I love those types of little upgrades. How about you, John?
Yeah, I was going to say too, I'm looking at the game Into Deep that I backed by Burnt Island Games, and just looking at the retail versus Kickstarter, I feel like I'm getting a lot of value, especially for what I paid for. Like I didn't find it that expensive for like the amount of content you're getting inside this box. But the retail just seems so bland. Like there's like standees in the retail versus the minis that you get in the Kickstarter. The tokens are just round pieces of wood, just like little things like that. But I think for me, when it comes to like a really good exclusive is I look at the game, and I'm super excited to get it. It should be coming soon, is Mind Management by Off the Page Games. I backed that game because it's based off like a fantastic comic book. And I know the comic book has like a ton of hidden meaning and messages in it. And I'm just like excited to get this deluxe version of this box because I know it's going to be chock full of all these hidden things like the comic. Then I know that the retail version's not going to have that. So I'm really excited for that. And like, upgraded components, and they've got more content to play the game, and, solo version of games they often throw in the Kickstarter exclusives, which is nice because that's how Matt and I have been purchasing games lately, is like, does it have a solo mode? Because we have to learn the game ourselves, especially now since in Ontario, we can't go anywhere. So I look for that. I can care less if it's got minis or anything in it. That's nice. But I look for like upgraded. I like the upgraded components more or less, like the look and feel and the tactile experience for the games, like better quality cards, better quality tokens, and maybe just some like exclusive content, like extra cards and stuff like that you normally wouldn't get in.
Yeah, a company that really did this really good quite a number of years ago was Tasty Minstrel Games. When they came out with their Deluxeifieds, they always when they came out with thing, it was always they had the base box, and then they had their Deluxeified edition, and you can only get the Deluxeified on the Kickstarter platform, and it had everything like you said. It has the upgraded components, it has the metal coins, it has the screen printed meeples, it's got a couple little extra goodies just tucked away just for you, type of thing. And so that was a company that they did it a lot, where there wasn't really much difference between the two, other than one was upgraded and one was not. essentially.
Yeah, and I like to, especially with like the Everdell campaign that finished a few months ago. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to purchase for the games that I have already, but they don't have any supplier that ships to Canada. So it's either I can get it into the US and pay astronomical shipping, or get it from Europe and pay even more astronomical shipping. So during this last campaign, I was able to add on the stuff that I really wanted for my base games that I have now and some of the expansions. So I was like super, super, super happy that I was able to do that. So I like when they do that too, where you can grab content from past games as well, and bring into so you can have a fuller or complete collection.
Yeah. That the pledge manager shop type thing.
Yeah.
I think a couple of great examples that I have, and you mentioned them earlier, Awakened Realms, Ryan. I think Awakened Realms has done a really good job on most of their games with the type of exclusives that they get. Now, not all of their games get that retail release, but one that I have that I love is Nemesis. And I need to dive into more of the content, but I know that Nemesis is not going anywhere from my collection, because I can definitely see how the base game itself, after a few plays, can get stale. I think it'll always be able to come back out to the table because of that semi-co-op nature of the game, and the fact that, you always have that, you're going to be going after each other. But with the Kickstarter exclusives, you get some different aliens to add a little bit of flavor. And then what I thought was really cool is they give you a whole new campaign to play. And it's a cooperative campaign with a storyline to it. So you can go through this whole co-op experience. So it takes the already included co-op experience and ups it up to another level. And what I like about it is that if a character dies during a mission, well, you come back, but as a different character. So the more characters that you have, the more options you have to come back, but they're not going to be as powerful as the characters that you started with. And then I really liked what Mantic Games did with Hellboy, the board game, because that was one of the ones where you got that deluxe version, you got the exclusives, it's in a deluxe box, bigger box, nicer components. There's still a retail edition that has that core Hellboy experience. But if you actually looked at the pricing of getting the Kickstarter and the shipping for everything you got, you really wanted to go on the Kickstarter. Unless you just you don't do Kickstarter, you're going to buy retail. There was no reason not to buy Hellboy directly from Mantic. And I think the game's done a lot better on Kickstarter. It's actually back on Kickstarter. Well, I think it might be done now. Yeah, it's just finished recently, and I backed it again because they're finishing up all of the comic book storylines. But really a great job, and I think we all agree. We like the deluxe components. We like a certain amount of exclusives, not a crazy amount, but mainly that better presentation and that real nice experience that kind of justifies you paying that increased price is what makes you want to go to Kickstarter.
Yeah, yeah. And especially that now the shipping thing is the one thing that's really been paying attention to lately. And I like it that a lot of these campaigns have the retailer areas, so you can bring that to your attention to like your friendly local game store if they're into like bringing in these Kickstarter types of games. And then maybe as the consumer, you might save a little bit on that shipping as well. So I know there have been campaigns in the past where I have asked my friendly local game store, Amazing Stories here in Saskatoon, I said, hey, are you interested in bringing in this thing? It might be hot and everything. And they'll say yes or no, they'll look into it, but everything that's always kind of like an option too now, especially with the shipping prices nowadays getting so astronomically high, especially if it's a campaign from Europe or even the United States nowadays.
So one popular one, and I want to mention when we're talking about shipping prices, because I was all about this. I play the app all the time, and the new version of the game sounded like it was just for me. It was Ascension Tactics. Then I looked at the shipping cost, and I was like, the shipping is like half the cost of the game, or like closer. And I was like, forget it, can't do it. It's like $80 shipping for one box. I was just no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that can be absolutely is a deterrent on most places. At least right now, like I can't remember the shipping prices being this out of control.
Yeah, I feel lucky in a way, but currently the borders are closed. But Matt actually works in Detroit, Michigan, so we would always just ship stuff to his work, and he would just bring it over. So
right,
it worked out well, but now we don't have that option right now. So
Yeah, I used to have an old, when I worked down south in southern Saskatchewan, I had a P.O. box in Minot, North Dakota.
Mhm.
And I would always just have stuff just shipped there because it was just literally like a 20-minute drive from the place that I lived to go to that little place across the border and come back. It was fantastic. Now it's not an option because I'm back in Saskatoon and that's 4 hours away.
I think this leads to a great segue. Now, we talked about what we thought are good exclusives, and the exclusives are what really creates that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And then sometimes I think companies just really crank up the FOMO so much so you get that Kickstarter bloat and that lots of stuff, but maybe not enough added value. So before we move on to talking about what some bad exclusives are, and then get into Marvel United, when did you actually have a good FOMO moment and then like a really bad FOMO moment when you're like, I bought this game because of FOMO and I regretted it, but it was good? And other ones where you're like, oh my God, why did I buy this? I need to sell this as fast as I can.
The one game that I felt like I needed to have was the Batman one that just came out from
The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight Returns from Cryptozoic. And I'm a huge Batman fan. And as soon as I heard that this game was launching, I was like, I know I'm going to back that. I don't care what the price is. I'm going to buy it. And then I saw what the price was. And I was super hesitant on it. But I did it anyway. And I know it was like a lot, and I did like the full in deluxe package because I felt like I was so excited for this game that I just needed everything that it came with. It didn't even reach all its stretch goals either. So, we missed out on some of the deluxe content, but I'm glad they took a solo game and one of the stretch goals was a cooperative campaign as well, so that I don't just have to play it solo and I can play it with Matt or my wife. I don't think I've had anything where I've regretted purchasing it and it showing up, but I have definitely backed projects and then regretted that I had backed it and then backed out. Just because I was like, I don't really need this game. And the biggest example, or the latest example for me, was with the Canvas second printing and the expansion. The game looks beautiful and it looks like it'd be fun to play, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't feel like I need. I sat on it and I was like, I really don't feel like I need to have this game. So I had a fear of missing out because I saw everyone on the social medias playing it and posting about it, and it looked beautiful. And then a few weeks after I backed it, and I just said, you know what, I don't need it, and I backed out.
So have you ever gotten a refund on a Kickstarter before because it just wasn't working out?
No, everything that I've backed except for one thing has been successful. So and I've had no complaints. I'm weary about who I back from as well. I tend to stick to people that I know have launched successful campaigns. I do a little bit of research before. And the only reason the one game wasn't successful, it was, I think they were just launching too soon after the pandemic started, and everyone was and they were like launching a party game or something like that. So it wasn't really in the cards for the time. So
yeah, one game that I had FOMO about was so there's the game company Mind Clash Games, and I backed a couple of their earlier Kickstarters, like I backed Tricarion and Anachrony, and those two games are like some of my absolute favorite games that I love to play. I love those hard, crunchy Euros. And then they launched the game Cerebria, and I backed it just on the notion that it's a Mind Clash game. They can't do no wrong, and there's a ton. There's this edition called the Origin Box where you get these painted miniatures and you get the expansion inside. You get a bigger box so all the content fits inside of it, and everything's going to be awesome and beautiful. And I backed it, and then I realized when it got shipped to me and I finally got it, I'm never actually going to get this played because it's a team-based game. You have to have 4 players or you have to have 6 players. And I was just like, why did I do this? We very rarely get like we come out, I get friends that come out to our game nights and stuff like that, but they're not into these hard, crunchy Euros. Why did I do this thing? Why did I get this thing that's never actually ever going to get played? So that's one that I had FOMO about, and I regretted it afterwards. It's not in my collection anymore. It's been passed on. I found a buyer for it in Alaska, so I happily shipped it to him. I guess my price was too good that he couldn't pass up. But one that there's a one that I have FOMO about that I never did get. I did eventually get, and that was Dwellings of Eldervale. I never backed it on Kickstarter when it had its edition, and then I finally did get one, but I had to pay I paid like the premium shipping from like Breaking Games, and then I had a horrible experience with that. That's another topic for another day, because they used FedEx, and then I got slapped with a whole bunch of like extra duties and stuff like that. And so that was my mistake. Good FOMO would be something along the lines of AEG's I'm trying to find it here, the Thunderstone Quest.
Oh, I saw that. I heard some things. I got that as well, and that's never leaving my collection. Like,
it's been fantastic, and some of the upgrades that you could get for it was no brainers. I love the bigger boxes that you can hold all of the cards into, and the nice dividers that you got for them, and just the storage organization that you could also get, and just some of those extra the card goodies. And we love it. It's fantastic, and they got great customer service too. As then I backed one of their, because I missed the original one, and they were very late on fulfilling that late order. That they just said, "Hey folks, our bad. We're going to give you whatever the newest one was. We're going to throw that in for you for free. And if you backed it for us, we're refunding you, because we're so late on our." And I had never seen that before. That was some sort of customer service that is unheard of in this industry. So,
well, those are some great stories. I've actually done a few Kickstarter refunds, actually, where I got bit by FOMO, and then as I did more research during the campaign, I realized what exactly I backed and regretted it. So the first one ever was Chronicle X, and that was because it included the co-op and solo mode as part of the core box. They moved it to the stretch goals, which was in wave 2, where they didn't have a shipping date for. So I was like, no, I'm out, refund me, like, forget this. Another one was Solomon Kane by Mythic, because of just the whole kerfuffle with Solomon Kane. I've heard the game's good, but wave 2 still isn't shipping, and that's way too long to have a few $100s of my money, because I went all in. So I got out of that one. And then when I really learned my lesson about backing and vetting companies was Onimaru from Penguins and Panda Productions. And we won't get into that one, but getting the refund was not fun. And then another horror story, but I actually managed to get my copy of the game. And as far as I know, there are only 2 copies of this that were actually shipped to North America, which is Exo Mankind Reborn. So I had to bug the company to pay the extra shipping to get them to ship it. So they shipped it, and I had to pay duties on it. But me and one other person that I ran into online and all the board game community got the game. They ran out of money to ship it to North America.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a buddy of ours in our game group has backed this game called Trench. So I don't know if you guys know about this game. This is I think they're on year 4.
Oh my God.
No, cut that loose.
Yeah, so it's basically a game. It's chess essentially, but it's a beautiful game, and it's just been riddled with problems, huge horror stories, and I just feel so bad for this company because they're just getting crapped on by Kickstarter people who backed it. But some stuff was out of their control, but a lot of it is in their control. But basically, they wanted to they had a strategy guide that was written for the game, and they ran out of money for shipment, so they were trying to ship everything together. So they had to wait for the strategy guide to be published and produced, and then the game produced, and it's just a big mess. Yeah.
That's disappointing. But an example of bad FOMO and good FOMO. So bad FOMO for me was Time of Legends, Joan of Arc. I bought the game. It was actually the first Kickstarter I ended up getting. I late pledged, didn't quite realize that I wouldn't be getting the super exclusives, but like the whole concept just appealed to me. But this is when I was starting out the channel. So I was actually doing it with my buddy Sam at the time before he stepped away and Julie replaced him. So I probably would have got the game played with Sam, but it just never at the table. I carried that thing around for a while. I finally sold it. I just realized that this just is not the type of game that I'm going to play. If I'm getting a competitive minis game on Kickstarter, there's got to be a solo mode or forget it. It's just not happening. An example of good FOMO was Cthulhu Death May Die. I backed it, put a deposit down, and I looked at it and was talking with my friends about it. And they had me totally convinced the game wasn't going to be good. Then I played it. And then I looked at all my friends. I was like, you guys are all idiots. You should have backed this game. It's one of the best games I own. Yeah. Got the giant Cthulhu. I'm so happy. I love this. To the point that one of my buddies, this is a different friend of mine, he came over, he played it. And the first thing he did, he goes, I'm getting the Kickstarter version. He's like, I'm finding it. I can't believe I didn't back this game. I need to own it. So that was when FOMO worked out in my favor.
Oh, yeah. I had that one. And I was just like, oh, am I going to play this game? And I backed out at the last second. And then, yeah, there are some groups here in Saskatoon that have been playing it. I'm just like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
That thing looks so much fun when they had it at game nights. And
it's the first game we played that when we actually won, like, because every scenario has its own like emergent story because of your different insanities and the things that happen. So we had this epic fight. And at one point I realized like, we're all going to die. But my character had the ability to like pull all the monsters away. And there was a room where there was a trap where I could blow them all up. So I pull all the monsters away from the team and I literally blow myself up to kill all the monsters. And I'm like, okay, you better kill the ancient one. Because now I'm sitting there watching the rest of the team go. And so like finally, like they're fighting the ancient one, like two of them die. And then the last guy gets like the final punch to like defeat, well, not a punch, like probably a shotgun blast that takes out the ancient one. We got the victory. It was just like, every game has like epic stories like that. And it's been such a treasure to have in my collection.
Yeah, I see it behind you there, and I just kind of want to reach in and grab it, you know?
You do like the Ring, just like reach through the screen.
I'm like, where's my Cthulhu? Like, what happened to my game? He's asking me, like, sorry, we got a video and it disappeared. Someone grabbed it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about like Kickstarter bloat, like bad exclusives. And you mentioned one, John, and I'll take this one away, that can be a good exclusive. And I agree with you when it's done properly. But this is one that I really don't like because most of the time they throw it in at the last second. It's not ready. So solo and co-op modes on Kickstarters. I think that they're great value when they're an exclusive and they're listed on the page. But the moment they're added as like this stretch goal that they're going to work on, I found that it's blown up in my face more times than not. I had Agents of Mayhem. I bought it for the solo co-op mode. They released like variant rules. It's like 3 years later. The cards have never been released. They haven't printed them yet. The rules aren't finished. I sold the game. It's moved on. So I think it's a great exclusive when included, but as a stretch goal, it just can become a little more bloated and it's just not the right stuff. I think that extra characters, take Zombicide, for example. I think there's a certain point of characters where you're good, but once you get to like maybe almost like 50 extra miniatures of players, like, do you really need 50 extra heroes? How many times it's going to take you? Like 50, 60 plays? If I look at my game collection, I think I'm at one game that's maybe got like 60 plays out of all of them. I think I've got some other ones that are getting close, Marvel Champions being one of them. So I think extra characters isn't necessarily the best. I also think that more content, like more campaigns and things like that, can also be a detriment as well. Not because they're necessarily a bad thing to have. And I know that a lot of companies want to get all the money at once and just produce the product. It's because it's just so hard to play those campaigns. Like I'm looking at Tainted Grail. There's a ton of content. I want to play through all of it. I'm happy that each campaign is separate and includes different characters. So I know I'll get to it eventually, but do I really need that extra box behind behind that one there right now? Because you can't see it, but we got like the future and past box, and I still haven't got through the present box for Tainted Grail. So got a couple years of playing left to do. So I think those are just some examples of where the games can sort of go off the rails. And whenever you're looking at stuff that isn't fully developed and that's becoming the stretch goals, that's where I think you get problems. And I think a campaign where the whole game was essentially that was Trudvang Legends. The game looked amazing. I was all in, but I actually got a refund on that because they decided to redesign it from scratch. So they don't even have a production date or shipping date. I mean, 5 years to hold an all-in pledge, like potentially of like a few $100s. At this point, I'd rather re-pledge a late pledge and get my money back. I might take a 15% hit, but it's worth more in my pocket than it's sitting in CMON's hands for who knows how long until they can completely rebuild the game from scratch. And that was just a case of the game not being ready. So I think anything that's not ready to go is when you really get into that territory of, depending on the company, you might be shooting yourself in the foot. And a lot of games have really sort of fallen off the track or hit gigantic delays because the game just wasn't ready. Wild Ascent is a great example. I mean, everything seemed like it was good to go, but they're still play testing, they're still doing this, they're still doing that. Like, they got it done, and I give them full credit. It's done, it's coming, but you probably should have been doing that for another year before you even hit the platform. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought up Trudvang there, because wow, like I'm in for Trudvang, and I have not canceled my pledge yet. I haven't asked for the refund. I don't know. There's some glimmer in the back of my mind saying that it is going to be ready before they. In my mind, it's going to be years, but I still have that fear that I'm like, no, it's going to be like right now. It's still good. It's just right at the end of the month, or it's right at the end of the summer type of thing. So I've got a fear of missing out on that, because then I was like, just like you said, I'm going to probably take a little bit of a hit. Financial wise, just to put it back in, but yeah, that's a good one for me. One was Tainted Grail. Like, I haven't gone through like hardly any of that content. Like, I'm still in the base box myself type do. And then another one was Seventh Continent. They kept adding on more curses into it, but it takes you like 15-20 hours to play one single curse, and the base box already came with, what was it, 3? There was already 3 full curses, and then they added more, and then they added another one, and then we're gonna give you we're gonna kickstart a whole second big box with 3 more big curses and these more little curses and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I want it all, but am I gonna play this all? Holy Toledo. And you're just, and I don't even know if those, outside of the base box, I don't even know if those expansion curses are actually any good to play through. I haven't even played them. They're still sitting sealed.
That's a great example. I mean, they did a retail edition for Seventh Continent, which I have, and that has a 3 base curses. And I bought the 4th one, the intro one, because that has some of the cards to make it easier. But I'm looking at Seventh Continent, and I'm all in on Citadel, because I think I'll play Citadel 7th Citadel way more, just because the changes and the less of the focus on survival. But originally I was like, man, I missed out on 7th Continent. Then I got the retail edition. I'm like, I think I've got enough to play here for a long time. And if I want to get something, I'll buy it later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know when it comes to exclusives. Like, I think the only thing that really makes me angry is, like you said, is the like solo or co-op versions. I feel like if you're adding those as stretch goals, like that should already be part of that base game. And I just think it's just a money grab at that point. Luckily for me, like the games that I don't back like giant games. I look when I back games, I'm like, oh, can I play this with my wife? Mostly because she plays a lot of games with me. And so I don't go for like those big, when I look online and 20 boxes show up on your doorstep for a single game.
Yeah, you get the refrigerator box full of boxes.
Yeah, I'm a little intimidated by that. So I've been pretty conservative when it comes to the games I do back and what pledge level I choose. So luckily, I haven't anything that has really stood out to me is just like that just the extra like solo mode or co-op mode as stretch goals. But I do remember backing Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, and that campaign just made me so angry with the amount of stretch goals that it had. I think there's just so many that just didn't need to be stretch goals. And I look at like, you know, this like exclusive dinosaur, or and then when you got it in the box, it was literally just one of that dinosaur meeple. It wasn't like a bunch of them. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous. And then it just was like stretch goal after stretch goal after stretch goal. And I was like, this could all just be part of your original idea. And it would have been fine. You would have funded and it would have been fine. But
yeah, the tiny epics. Right? Yeah, the tiny epics are really good for this.
Oh yeah. So I'm just like, I was a little like annoyed. And then when you get it in the box, it just like explodes when you open it and you can never get it back in the box properly.
I think that's a good point. And now I think we need to shift to the title focus of the video. I hope everyone's been enjoying the conversation up to now. But let's talk about Marvel United, because I think this game has got a little bit of everything. So one thing I want to say, Julie did okay this. She loves Marvel. We went all in on the first Marvel United. We even did split shipping, got the game. The game is no longer in our collection, because when we looked at all the content and just how we are heavy co-op gamers, the one thing that came up with, and we kept looking at each other, is when are we going to play this? We have our Marvel game. We have Champions, and Julie's a big fan of Legendary. So it was just like, we're playing a Marvel game. Champions was almost always coming off the shelf. Otherwise, it'd be Legendary. Like Marvel United, after we really figured out that core box, it was just one of those things where it was out of the rotation. And I'd love to have it because of our son, because when he gets older, it'd be fun to play with him, but he's just turned 1 year old. We got like another 5 or 6 years. Luckily, a buddy of mine was the person that bought it. He said, hey, if I'm ever going to sell this core pledge, I'll talk to you about it first. I'm like, okay, good. You take it. You ever want to sell it, get it back to me. And then I saw X-Men and I'm like, oh my God, I'm happy I sold this, because I'm a completionist. And I think you've got now a game that has almost 14 expansions. And we're not talking about like Fantasy Flight Games Descent, where an expansion is, one miniature, or, 4 heroes that once you open up the box, it fits in your main box. And we're talking like 12 big boxes that could probably fill its own small calyx at this point.
Yes, Marvel United.
Yeah.
So I backed this thing for the sole reason that, so I looked at it and I was like, okay, it's a Marvel game. And it looks like just kind of like a really, really, really simplified version of Marvel Champions, which is a game that I absolutely adore. I absolutely love Marvel Champions. And I said, this looks like it's really streamlined, very simple gameplay mechanics. And I'm in the a few years beyond Jason here. Like my son is 5 and he's going to be turning 6 here in this summer. And I said, this might be something that he will be able to play. And we are huge comic books and the Marvel movies and all these things in our household. So when it finally did, I didn't go for the split shipping. I don't know why. I just waited for everything to come all at once. And it finally came. And when I opened up the gigantic refrigerator box of all these things coming on, I opened it up and he came over and he looked at me and says, what is that? I said, well, this is just a board game. It's got little figures in it. And he's just like, open it now. And, and we did. And so now, and after that night, this has been a like bi-nightly game that we play. And I'm glad that the playtime is only like 25 to 30 minutes long. It's just that quick thing right before bedtime and get them all riled up and stuff like that. And we are playing, like I look at it and I get with you, Jason, like I look at it and like there are like 52 characters here and there's like 20 some villains to play. I'm like, we are never gonna. So we actually just finished. We played through the base box very fast, like once each. And we just the other night finally finished playing through all of the stretch goal box, which was like a whole bunch of other things. And so now we're working into like now all the little, all the other small little, there it is. all the little small guys now, which are actually adding actually a little bit more complexity to the game that I didn't actually think that was going to be there. Like the Infinity Gauntlet expansion has actually it's like a mini campaign type of deal where you have to play through the children of Thanos before you actually get to Thanos himself type of scenarios. So I've actually been enjoying the bloat for once in my Kickstarter backing career. Like, I don't know, my BG stats here says that I've played Marvel United already. What is it saying here? 45 times.
Nice.
That's why I think this game falls like exactly in between, because I think if you've got the right age range, and I think the core box, the stretch goals, like the Infinity Gauntlet and probably another box, you're getting a lot of value. But if you can get with the FOMO, I'm not sure if you're getting a ton of value with some of the other boxes. But for me, it was when I saw X-Men, I was like, okay, now this is just, and then the amount of boxes they threw in with X-Men, I was like, this is just.
No, it got ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, exactly. I think the original campaign, it made sense to me. I think it was a little bit more on the bloated side, but they added a lot of value. Like some of the pledge levels gave you other stuff for free. So it's like that campaign that sort of hovers on the middle. Is it right in the sweet spot, or is it a little bit bloated? I think it's kind of varies depending on how people's opinions. When you saw X-Men, and then when they threw Fantastic Four, like just at the end, like, hey, get the Fantastic Four box. It's X-Men Fantastic. It's not even Marvel. It's not part of X-Men. It's just Marvel United Fantastic Four. It feels to me like they're like, yeah, we were going to make this its own game, but because we're never going to get this much money, let's just milk everyone for Fantastic.
Yeah, this game, man, I went back and forth on backing it. I never actually bit the bullet, and I only have the retail box, and I bought it a couple weeks ago. I actually bought it at my grocery store. They had it on for like half price. So I was like, I might as well get it because it was like $20 or something like that at my grocery store. So I don't know. I look at that and I see the amount of stuff that comes with it. I'm like, I don't have space for the board games I have now. I can't bring like 20 boxes for one game into my house. It wouldn't make sense at this point. But that X-Men one looked sick. And I know last time I talked with Ryan, you were like on the fence about getting it. I want to know if you bit that bullet or not.
So here's my thing. So now I've said I've played through the base box and the stretch goal box of the Marvel United, the original pledge. That was super tremendous value. If I just left it at that, and I just went on to Kickstarter if I went back in time and I just pledged just the base box, and get the stretch goal box as part of being barking the campaign.
I think you would have gotten the Infinity Gauntlet and maybe another box with another pledge. I think you would have got
something like that.
Yeah, you would have got like 4 boxes, I think, total.
Yeah, it was something like that. That was tremendous just value without adding anything else on top of it. You'd got, if you decided if that was right for you and you were going to play it, like the next game that I've played the most of this year is like I've played something else like 10 times, and this one's already in the 40 pluses, just because it's just hit that spot with my son. Mm-hmm. And so now with the X-Men, I'm only at just that basic pledge level. I backed it at just the basic pledge level. That gives me the core box, the stretch goal box, and I think it also gives me one other box right now too. I'm just trying to look at it wherever it is here. You guys can continue. Yeah,
actually, when you said that you play it with your son, that actually makes me a little bit happy, because my daughter's 4, and we play board. I play whatever game I want with her, and just if I have to simplify the rules so that she can understand it, I will. So that makes me excited that your 5-year-old can play this game.
Yeah,
fine,
and it's been fine, because there are only just a few cards that have in every deck. There's a few cards that have some text on it, and so whenever those comes out, I just tell him, hey, when you do this, you get to also do this.
Yeah,
and he's played some of them enough times that he now just knows that card now just does something extra, and yeah, it's like the extra text is like not a huge deal for him, and of course he's just getting into that stage where he's just starting to learn to read. So he's kind of starting to recognize some words and he can start sounding them out a little bit, but he doesn't actually know what it means yet. I still have to help him with that.
Yeah.
But,
so I'm excited. I might be able to bring it to the table with my kids soon and just see how that goes.
I think you'll have a lot of fun playing it with kids. The real reason that Julie and I got rid of it is we play a ton of Marvel Champions. We play Aeon's End. Like there's just too many co-ops that we play together. And I don't know why for us, like the game got, like the first game was difficult, but just because we were figuring it all out. But once we solved the core box, we cranked it all the way up to like the maximum difficulty. We beat it with every character on heroic to the point where like it wasn't challenging. And that's why we decided to let it go. I know that there's, as you're saying, Ryan, there's more complexity and villains in some of the boxes. Now, everyone said that the Sinister Six box is pretty much like a must-have for the game. And I know I let it go. And I don't plan on necessarily getting it back, but I do have my $1 in on X-Men where I'd probably get like that core pledge. I'd maybe grab the Fantastic Four. And then I'd look at the stretch goal box and then maybe like the Sinister Six. And just because it's the Infinity Gauntlet, I might have to get that. But I haven't decided yet. But I do think there's a value pledge that they have in Marvel United. I do think that they have definitely gone after everyone's FOMO and just throwing everything at the wall. And the game is definitely a little bit bloated. I think there's certain characters and certain modes that aren't gonna be played. I know with X-Men they're trying to add some value with the Mastermind mode where you can play versus, but I don't know, like one versus many games. I got some great ones and I never play them one versus many. I play them co-op. Who wants to be the bad guy? So when I started seeing stuff like that, it's not saying that those modes are bad, but I'm like, now you're really just throwing stuff at the wall to just sell this game. You're like, oh, these guys didn't buy it the first time. Now I'm going to do this. So they'll buy it the next time. Oh, we want anti-heroes. So we've got anti-heroes. And I'm like, oh my God, tone this down, please. I don't know. I think the X-Men is when the campaign was like, I thought it was a little ridiculous at first, but I could see the value. But X-Men, I'm like, oh my God, it's like assaulting my eyes.
Yeah. So then they add in the team mode. But if you want to play team mode, you got to buy the gold box and you got to buy the blue box. So you got to buy 2 boxes if you want to play team mode. And quite honestly, who's going to play this team mode? I'm not going to get like a group of kids to sit down and play this team based. I doubt I'm going to get my adult friends to actually sit down and play this team based. Oh, but they have to throw in like some of the really coolest X-Men characters into those boxes because the FOMO people are going to sit there and be like, but I want Colossus. I want some of these other guys and I can only get them if I buy that box. Well, this is beep. Like,
yeah, I pulled up the X-Men campaign and I was like, I was like super interested in it. And then once I got in there and I was like, scrolling through the campaign on my phone and I felt like I just kept scrolling for like 10 minutes just trying to get everything, and it was just like, this is too overwhelming for me to comprehend what to back. And so I think I just didn't back it because I was scared.
Well, my recommendation to you, John, would be keep an eye on the late pledge, because if your daughter likes the core box, they are letting you get like the stretch goal box and some other stuff with there. So you could just literally go in and get the stretch goal box and completely just add a ton of content without getting sucked into everything else. So that's probably got some good value for you.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah, that's exactly why I just backed it at this very basic, this $60 US pledge that gives me the base box, stretch goal box, and it looks like a X-Force box. So I got 3 boxes, and then the pledge manager hasn't opened up yet. So if I do decide, say, oh man, I kind of like that Fantastic Four, I want that to complete my Marvel United back here, I can maybe do that too. But then I don't know. I really hate it when CMON does this. They got all these boxes, but I only want one character out of that box. Mm-hmm. I don't want all that other stuff. I don't want all those other junk.
And the crazy thing with CMON, and this is just a general complaint with a lot of Kickstarters that have tons of content, why is there no collector's box so I can store and sort everything nicely and neatly in one shelf? Because you know what? If there was a Marvel United collector's box, there's a chance I'd have been like, well, this takes up 1 square of this Calyx, like Tainted Grail there. Well, this whole thing has got a bunch of stuff. But if I had everything in 1 Calyx square, I may not have sold it. But trying to justify, as John said, like, basically an entire catalog for a game that I'm not going to touch for 4 or 5 years. And I don't know, maybe the Marvel United is going to go up in value, but with how many people are buying this game, I think this game is going to get played out rather quickly. I can see this game going the other way on the secondary market. That I'm maybe better off taking my chances, especially with X-Men. I think a lot of people that are just huge X-Men fans are going to get this to the table and they're going to get burned. Because when you look at Board Game Geek, there's a lot of people that are giving it 10s, a lot of people that are rating it really highly when they play with kids, but there's a lot of people that are like co-op gamers that got this because it's Marvel and they're like, what the heck was I doing? I bit the FOMO bullet and this is not at all what I expected. I knew it was simple, but it's just too simple for me. And I know that a lot of the challenge some people have mentioned, I don't know, you can comment on this more, Ryan, it's come from like RNG with some of the villains. You just get a poor start and you're basically toast right off the bat.
Oh, okay. Don't get me. So this is another example of what you were talking about before, like these stretch goal villains and these stretch goal heroes. Like I believe some of these stretch goal villains were not play tested to their fullest abilities, because there are some villains like, okay, so let's take Marvel Champions. One of the easiest villains there is Rhino. It's like he's like the basis guy in the basic box, and you kind of just Rhino's the guy that you take your characters out on a test run for just to see how they work, because Rhino in the stretch goal box of Marvel United is extremely super ass tough. Sorry if I swore there or anything, because he is like if you get one of his super cards like off the like very very beginning, like all of your heroes are knocked out, like right from game one, and you have a tremendous hill to climb up, right from the get go. Like I'm like, that was frustrating. That was I told my son, I'm like, well, buddy, we lost. What do you mean we lost? I'm like, no, we flipped over that card. He killed us. We lost. We have to start over again. He's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Let's just redraw. I was like, that's what we do with Rhino. Like if you draw that bad card right off the get, and I'm like, nope, okay, just shuffle it in just till you just make sure that very first card is like not the bad card. Then you have a chance. Like, and then there's some other villains that kind of do the same thing. I'm just like, were these even play tested?
I feel that way a little bit about some of the Aeon's End content, because we got Aeon's End Outcast. Love the game. We'll be talking about it with Friday Night Games and a podcast in the near future. But that first boss, was harder than anything else in the entire campaign. And that game has got its own scaling issues. Like, don't get me started. Like 2 players is easier than 3, that's easier than 4. So that was just completely out of whack. But there was a few villains like that I ran into that just, they weren't play tested. And I think that does happen with Kickstarter, especially with a lot of this content. Like the games aren't play tested enough, or, they fund it and then they're going to finish it in play testing, i.e. Trudvang Legends, another CMON project. So I don't know. I mean, I think you've got a lot of value, but I do think that we're seeing, at least in some respects, I think Kickstarter is kind of blowing up and is a little bit in danger of collapsing in on itself. I know that my pledging and backing is like just completely changed in the last year. I'm still backing a lot of projects, but a lot of the stuff is going in at $1. I'm looking at when pledge managers are going. If something looks cool, if I see it go into production or it's about to go into production, I might press the button. If they're closing the pledge manager and production isn't even close to starting, I'm just like, see ya. I'll find you on the secondary market if I've got the chance.
Yeah, one thing that I almost did, and I'm glad I backed out of it, is Queen Games was doing the Stefan Feld City Collection, and they were biting at the collectors, like biting at that collector's FOMO really hard with like the super deluxe acrylic pieces, fancy box that shines and it's got gold foiling, and your name's going to be on the inside of the box, and you got a special number. And hey, if you back at this level, all of your boxes from here on out for all future pledges are going to have the exact same number on them and everything like that. And they were biting that, like they saw me coming, and I'm just like, oh, I can't. I love Stefan Feld, and you're reprinting games that I can't find or I can't get, and they're going to be a new edition, and I want it. And luckily, what finally bit me was that, it's in euros. Okay, I can't do it. The shipping's like 25 euros. Yeah, no, I can't do it.
I don't even want to talk about the most expensive Kickstarter game that I backed, but I think we've talked enough about Marvel United. Unless John, you have anything that you want to add to the conversation here?
I think I was just looking at the X-Men campaign again, and I didn't realize there was a Deadpool box. And now I'm like,
Right.
I'm just regretting all my life decisions at this point.
Well, that's a great thing, right? The pledge manager is going to open up for late pledge, so you can get the stretch goal box if your daughter likes it, and then you can get the Deadpool box for yourself, and you can just get those 2 boxes, and you're good to go.
There we go.
Yeah, but then there's like that super all-in pledge that gives you the extra 2 characters. But you can only get these characters if you back at this pledge level. Like, come on, CMON, you really know what you're doing in triggering FOMO. Like they've got this down to an art.
I think it is starting to bite them in the butt though. But I want to agree with you. I'll let you. Sorry for jumping in there, Ryan. But I agree with Marvel that they've got it going full on. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's like their campaigns are so predictable at this stage. Everybody knows, yeah, you're gonna get that base box, and then there's another pledge level, and then there's gonna be a million stretch goals, and then as soon as funding starts dying down a little bit, here's another big box. Look, now we're unlocking stretch goals again. Now it's starting to die off. Here's another box, and like everybody knows that this is everybody knows that this is gonna happen. And then yet everybody's surprised at the same time at the very end. There's like, wow, look at this refrigerator box full of things that I got. And I didn't realize it was going to be that much. Yes, you did. You knew exactly what you were getting for like $300, $400, $500 later.
See, when I look at Zombicide Undead Alive campaign with the Western campaign, I don't know if it's just smaller because they didn't get as much funding, but I feel they nailed it like perfectly right there. Like the all-in pledge, still a lot of money, but it's like $240 with a few boxes, and you're going to have enough stretch goals that you can play through all that content. And I know we've got some great retailers, but companies that are putting out these nice collector's edition without Kickstarter. I want to give a quick shout out to Stonemaier Games for doing stuff like that with like the Red Rising collector's edition. And then you've got the retail edition, which we have, but we also got the collector's edition upgrade components, so you can get the retail edition. But if you really want those upgraded components, the only thing you're missing is the insert. So there's definitely some other ways to do this, and I'm wondering if this FOMO crank everyone for as much money as you can get at the moment is going to start really hurting the platform, because I feel like you got some of the people that may have been whales in the past, like you and me, Ryan, that are just like, I think I need to take a few steps back.
Yeah. Like when I told like Ian and Norm, like, no, I just barked Marvel Unite X-Men just at like the basic level. They're like, this was like revolutionary. Like, this has not been heard of on the podcast ever before. Like this is something new. And I have to, because I'm just like, I'm starting to get to that stage where it's like, there's just games piling up in like small piles, like all around my basement. Like I have no storage space for them anymore.
Yeah, and for us, it got to the point where, like we were playing games with designers on our live stream when we were doing the Twitch stuff, and just out of support for these designers, we were backing these games, and it's just like, at some point, Matt and I collectively, like, I've got 20 games literally coming within the next couple months, and it's just like, that's a lot, and Matt, it has equal amount coming as well. And then he's got a shelf of like 40, 50 games that we haven't even touched yet. And it's just like,
yeah, I'm at the same place. My shelf of opportunity is probably at like getting close to the 3-digit number of games there. Now, a lot of them are small, and I'm now actually taking some stuff off and trying to sell it and move it out the door, because it's just at this point I can't do it. And like you had with Matt working in Detroit, I was able to get a lot of games when I started the channel, like cheaply from the States. And then realizing that I probably got too many, because a lot of those ones that I got in the early days for like maybe $10, $15 are just haven't been played. And now I'm just like, okay, got to make room for the other stuff. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask John, did you actually back the Batman, the animated series game? Did you back that one, the big Kickstarter from IDW?
I did not. Thankfully. I played the digital game. and it was fun, but I don't think it'd be a game that I would get to my table enough to really get my value out of that. So yeah, wasn't one that I backed.
All right. So just out of curiosity, I want to know, like, what is the most expensive Kickstarter that we've all backed? And then I think we'll end the conversation here unless anyone's got any other points to add. This has been a lot of fun. So I'll lead it off. So my most expensive Kickstarter, and I got one. It's actually significantly more expensive than ISS Vanguard. So that's all I'm going to say, because the game is literally made for me. I grew up playing Final Fantasy. I love the JRPG aspect. So I went all in on Madara, like all in, got everything. That bill is retarded. But if I get to play all 3 acts, then I'm going to get a ton of value for the content. But I still can't believe I went all in on that game. The price tag was just astronomical.
For me, the most expensive one I did was the new Everdell campaign, where I backed the 2 last expansions of the game. But I also, in the Pledge Manager, got the big old box of storage, and then I added on a couple of the things that I wanted for my collection, like the wooden tree, Evertree, and stuff like that. So I think that, and then with the shipping, I think it was a couple $100 after all is said and done. I don't remember exactly how much it costs, but I would just won't tell my wife how much it costs, and then we'll go from there. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry for jumping in there. I was just saying, I know how much Madara costs. I'm just not saying it on the podcast. I just don't.
Yeah.
That's hashtag smart. That like, don't go on. Let's not go on record.
No, my Everdell's a game that my wife and I sort of just fell in love with together. So that was me justifying getting that pledge level. So it's okay that I spent that money, and she knows that I did that. So it's all good.
So for me, I'm just kind of doing the quick scroll. To me, it actually looks like it's going to be tainted, that the Tainted Grail. I went all in with this, like the sun drop, like painting on them, because everything just looked so beautiful. And I added on all the extra campaigns and all the extra little characters and the little extra, like just the cosmetics. And I even got like the big King Arthur statue that sits on my desk at my workplace and everything like that. And kids just come by and look, and they're like, what is that? And everything like that. And it's like, yeah, that one's by far the most one. But then there's a few others that, just because that one's in, what is that one? That was in British pounds, was that one. So that after the conversion rate, it actually would be the most expensive.
Oh, definitely, especially with that $73 shipping or something.
yeah. And I even that was one that I did split on, because I said I wanted to start playing this, and then I got to like. I'm pretty sure I'm only like a few chapters out. I'm pretty sure I could probably finish that, like if I actually sat down with it again.
So Julie and I are only on chapter 3. But what happened was we got lost in Tainted Grail, like completely lost. Like we went all over the map that we could go. So we finally got back on the story, but the interesting thing is the game actually works like an RPG. So because we spent like 10 hours running around, we got back on story. And then we're trying to do stuff. I'm like, wait a second, we're completely overpowered. We've got like 3 or 4 extra skill points total. Like challenges are a breeze. The enemies show up and we're just like slaughtering them. And I'm like, well, that kind of sucked. But this is also really fun now, because we're just like, we're supposed to be these really weak guys, but it's like Final Fantasy. You just go outside of the village and keep punching stuff in the face till you're level 10, and then you go to this level 5 and level 10.
Right. That was my first experience with Pokemon, just smacking the crap out of Weedles and Caterpies, and
you just hang out there for too many hours, and then all of a sudden that big, like the Charizard show up, and you're like, I can handle you. Like,
boom, you got it.
All right, well, there's our discussion on Kickstarter exclusive Bloat Marvel United. I hope that everyone enjoyed it. So we're going to go around, at least the way it's set up on my screen. So John, where can everyone find you and your content?
You can find Friday Night Games at Instagram at Friday Night Games _official, Twitter at Friday Night GMS, TikTok at Friday Night Games, or our website, FridayNight.Games. Our podcast launches every Friday on all major streaming platforms.
And Ryan, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, we are on Twitter and Instagram. We can find out what we've been playing lately. You just have to go at BC Boardgamers. And then, yeah, our weekly podcast drops every Saturday. That's our Cardboard Conjecture flagship podcast. And then every Wednesday, you can catch out What You've Been Playing Wednesday with Jason and Julie of Dice and Dragons and Matt and John from Friday Night Games and a whole bunch of other guys. We got like Cardboard Kid on there, All You Can Board. Oh, now I'm going to see it. Now I started name dropping and I'm going to forget everybody. Matthew Legault, Scorpio Masqué, a whole bunch of other guys, Mo, the Tabletop Bellhop. We got a massive cast.
Yeah. Cavre Studios.
Cavre's on there. Oh my goodness. Now I see I started this and I shouldn't have, but I'm sorry for everybody that I'm forgetting. Oh, Meeple Dungeon, Anna Marie and Rob there. They've been a lot of fun. Yeah. And
Board on the Air. That's the other one.
Board on the Air. They're also from Saskatoon. They do a radio show that they turn into a podcast every now and then.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. And just to remind everyone, because we're going to use our usual tagline to keep playing games, and you'll see some videos popping up that are related to our discussion down below. And make sure to check out the video description to find links to all of our social media feeds here on Dice and Dragons. You can see pictures of Julie and I playing Marvel United. You have to scroll back to those feeds, however. And then we also have our link to multizone.ca, a great game store out of Gatineau.ca. If you're ever looking for some games, check them out. Click the link down below because you get 10% off your next purchase. And it's a great way to support the channel because a portion of that gets returned to you. And boys, join me in it. Let's tell everyone to keep playing games.
Playing games.